not only did my brother and I have to provide, about 2 years worth of pay stubs, statements, tax returns and everything, but we also had to write a motivation letter, explaining our backgrounds, why we wanted to buy this house, a whole bunch of things they would not ask a white man. Not doing more. What's good, y'all? It's your boy Jerry, back with another episode of Jerry's 2 Cents, and I know it's been a while, but your boy has been working. Nah, but for real though, my brother and I have officially become real estate investors and co-owners of a 3-family property in Brooklyn.
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Now, I know that for many people from New York and who live in other expensive markets, the idea of buying a property is something that you can only dream of for different reasons, whether you can't afford it, you don't qualify for a loan, your credit isn't good, etc. So I understand that my brother and I are in very privileged positions, but for those of you who, getting a lot of money or you just have high ambitions, I wanted to make this video to just kind of lay out the process that I went through when trying to purchase this property and some of the things that you can do when trying to purchase a property in New York or similar expensive markets. So I'm going to be talking about a lot of different things in this video, including some of the things that you should consider before purchasing a multifamily property, and I'm also going to be walking you through the actual analysis that my brother and I did when we were purchasing the property and some of the numbers that we ran just to make sure that we knew that we were making a good investment. But before we get into all that, I know all of y'all are wondering, how much was it? How much did we put down? So let's just get that out the way. I'm not gonna tell you where the house is, but we purchased the property for 1.5 million, yes, million. And down payment, including closing costs and everything, was a little above 250,000. Yes. I know it's a lot of money, but again, this video is for those who, have those high ambitions or, just make a whole lot of money. This is not gonna be a video for everybody, but for those who do have those aspirations, this is the video you might wanna watch. So let's get right into it and some of the things that you should look at before purchasing that property. Bernard. The first thing that you want to consider is researching the location of the property that you want to buy. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. The house that we bought it's in the hood. It's not the hood, but it's the hood. Let me explain, right? So my brother and I, we were just leaving the property the other day. Turn the corner, we sitting at the stop sign, right? Nothing too crazy, but a crackhead pulls up to our car. Regular New York stuff. She's like, please, can I get $1? Can I get $1? Can I get $1? You're like, you don't got it. You then, right? So that tells you if anything, we're really in Brooklyn, right? But despite that, we still see a lot of opportunity in that neighborhood, and we think that in the next 10 years or so, it could turn into another Bed-Stuy. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Bed-Stuy, but 10, 15 years ago, Bed-Stuy had the name Bed-Stuy Do or Die. That's not somewhere you want it to be, but now over 70% of the residents in Bed-Stuy are now white, and those properties that went for about maybe $1 million, $2 million about 10, 15 years ago are upwards of $5 to $6 million. So you definitely want to do some research on the area. If it's close to like a train, public transportation, is it close to like a supermarket, things of that nature. You want to look for early signs of gentrification. If there's already a Starbucks there, it's too late. It is too late. But if there are early signs of it, that's definitely something you want to look into and, ask around, see what the sentiment is in terms of that neighborhood, if there's actually an opportunity, and definitely just do your research, and that's part of the reason why we purchased in Brooklyn, because we know Brooklyn, right? A city like somewhere like New Jersey, we don't really know it too well. So we got to ask around a lot. We have to outsource a lot of things. So just in terms of like, sticking to what if you can, is ideal. So first step, research the location and just make sure that it makes sense. Alright, so once you have researched the property, the next step that you want to do is find a lender and get pre-approved. Now, this is important because for a lot of sellers, especially in New York, they're not even going to talk to you if you're not pre-approved. They want to know that you're serious, right? And in a market like New York or other expensive markets, finding a lender can be a bit tough. And I say this because you have certain lenders, like the larger ones, like a Rocket Mortgage, Chase, Wells Fargo, and everything. You know, they're big guys, right? So naturally, they've already made their money. You know, they have a much lower risk tolerance. So if you're trying to make these $1 million deals and whatnot, they want a 20% down payment, right? And at 1.5 million, you know, you could imagine 20% down is a lot of money. You know, we were lucky that we were able to find a smaller lender. Obviously, small lenders, you know, they make money, but not quite as much. So they have a much higher risk tolerance, and we were able to, you know, lock in an FHA loan at 10%, which Rocket, Chase, and a lot of these other bigger lenders were not trying to do. So while that might be the case, yes, you know, you may not have to put down quite as much going to like some of these smaller lenders. They're gonna make you do a lot more in terms of the process. So, you know, whereas a Rocket, you know, they can like streamline this process because they have all this fancy technology and stuff. You're gonna have to pay 20% down. Whereas with the smaller lenders, you might be able to pay less, but they're going to work you. So for example, you know, not only did my brother and I have to provide, you know, about 2 years worth of pay stubs, statements, tax returns and everything, but we also had to write a motivation letter, you know, which is like a 3-page just begging note, essentially, right? Us, you know, explaining our backgrounds, why we wanted to buy this house. A whole bunch of things they would not ask a white man. Not doing more. Anyway, right? So these are definitely some things you want to consider, right? You know, when you go to these bigger lenders, you know, you're probably gonna have to put a lot more down because they just have a much lower risk tolerance, right? They've already made their money and they want to know for sure that they're going to get their money back, which, you know, is more likely if you put down 20%. A smaller lender, you know, they are more open to risk, but they're gonna work you a lot more for it because they don't have quite as much. It's just like, you know, you have to work for this right here, you know? So definitely you want to consider that, but again, like before you're even looking at properties, this is something you definitely just want to get done because it just makes the process a whole lot easier moving forward, especially once you have decided that, you know, this is the property you want. You know, you have to be kind of quick with these things because again, like it's very competitive, especially in a state like New York or other expensive markets. The next point I wanted to make is that you want to find an agent, right? And while you may not necessarily need an agent, I would definitely recommend you do that, especially if it's your first time buying a property, because there might be some things that you may not be aware of that the agent can explain to you. For my brother and I, we were a bit more experienced in terms of real estate. Again, I was previously a real estate salesperson, so I have some knowledge when it comes to that. But nonetheless, we are two busy people and, you know, we wanted to be as hands-off as possible when it came to that process, you know, just outside of like the real important things that we needed to do. And that's where our agent came in handy, you know, just speaking with the seller's agent and doing all the little things that, you know, we didn't necessarily have the time for. So I would definitely recommend getting an agent when starting out, and then over time, once you learn things, you know everything you need to know, that's something you can do on your own. Going off of my last point in terms of having an agent that can help you explain some things that you may not know about, when you do find a property and before you make an offer on it, some of the things that you may want to consider is the condition of the house, the rents within that area, because you're going to be presumably renting out some of the units within it, any of the building or zoning codes within that area, whether there are any current tenants within the building and what their leases is like, whether there's services provided, and also if there's any outstanding tax bills against the property. These are definitely some of the things that you want to be aware of right before you actually make an offer on the property. So once you've done all of these things, finally you're going to make an offer on the property, which is something else that your agent can help you with in terms of figuring out what is a good price to offer for the property. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you're finding these properties through a Street Easy, a Zillow, or any other type of similar service, you're probably going to have to pay a premium for that property because of just how competitive it is, especially in a market like New York. Like, everybody is seeing these properties, somebody saw the property we were looking at, and unfortunately, we had to pay $50,000 over asking price. Yes, the property was initially $1.5 million, but we had to pay $50,000 over because there was somebody else who made an offer all cash. Crazy, right? And because we were doing an FHA, obviously coming in at that same 1.5 price isn't quite as attractive. Who doesn't want all cash? So we had no choice but to offer $50,000 more, right? And while it still made sense for us, this may not make sense for someone else. So I would say ideally, if you have a friend of an auntie who you find out is selling a house or something to that extent, you call those off-market deals, you definitely want to look towards those first because they're far less competitive and you can actually get the house for a reasonable amount, right? Again, my brother and I see a lot of potential in this property, so we were willing to pay that premium, but paying well over the asking price is not ideal for many people. Like, I've seen many stories of people in different markets who have paid $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over asking price, and now, like, when they got their mortgages or just over time, they've come to regret it just because it wasn't necessarily what they expected, and they ended up having to pay a lot more over time. So again, I'm going to be explaining, why we ultimately still made that decision to buy the property, despite paying $50,000 over asking. But again, this is something that you definitely don't want to do as your first option. So now the final part is closing on the property, right? So once you make the offer and the seller accepts that offer, obviously you're going to start going into the closing process where your lender is going to start asking for a lot of different information for underwriting purposes, just so that they can make sure that everything goes smoothly and they actually, cough up that money to pay to that seller. So for my brother and I, despite having, high incomes and good credit scores, our closing process still took about 3 months or so, and that's on the quicker end of things, right? So, you have closings that could take anywhere from 6 months to a year, just depending on, do you have all the money required and just other factors, right? So it's definitely a process you're gonna have to be patient with, right? But, it's worth it nonetheless. So, once you make that offer and the seller accepts it, you want to make sure that you have all your documents in order for your lender to look at. And yeah, at a certain point, it's just going to be, once you provide everything, it's just going to be once the lender is ready, right? And then they're going to provide you with a closing date and, you can close on that property. But definitely something that takes time, even if you have all your ducks in a row, this is still something that will take time and that you have to be patient about. So with all that being said, now I'm going to show you guys the exact numbers that, my brother and I were looking at prior to making this deal, and basically just walk you all through that with the deal. So now we're doing the deal analysis part of the video, where I'm just going to basically show you how my brother and I went about this deal. So right now we're looking at some of the rough numbers of when we were assessing this property, such as the primary loan, the down payment, things of that nature. But before I get into all of that, one thing that I really want to highlight is the fact that, yes, we did buy a 3-family property, but this deal would not have made sense had it not been for this 4th unit we have, which is the basement. Had it not been for the basement and we were simply relying on the 3 units, right, we would have netted about $8,600 a month, right? And as you can see here with our assumptions, our monthly expenses total out to about $8,000. So we would net about $600, which is kind of
small on the margin side. In the event that we had an emergency, it's very likely that we would have had to come out of our own pocket to do that, just depending on the type of emergency there was, like if a pipe burst or something like that, right? And we knew that this is a house that we wanted to pay for itself. So when we saw the basement and the potential it had, we made the assumption that we could make another $2,000 off of that basement, which would net us about, as you can see, $10,600 a month. With that, it kind of betters our margins and allows us to put a lot more money to the side, to which we can then keep the house maintenance and, essentially paying for itself. So as I just explained, what you're looking at right here is more of a rough overview of the numbers that my brother and I were looking at. It gets way more complicated than this. Let me show you. Right, so this is the financial model that my brother and I were working on, which basically just goes over all like the nitty-gritty details that come with making these types of deals. And obviously you see there's a lot going on here, and I'm not expecting you guys to know all of this, nor am I going to go over explaining all of these things, because that's a whole nother video within itself. So I think that what is easier is to use an investment property calculator. This is one I just found off of Google. So I've already pre-filled most of the information here, so you have the purchase price here, the 10% down payment, the loan terms, the interest rate. Keep in mind, there's some things that aren't accounted for, such as private mortgage insurance, which we had to tack on with our loan because we took out an FHA, but regardless, right, these are relatively accurate, right? So, we assume the 10% vacancy rate. Basically, like we don't assume that we're always going to have tenants. We're going to assume that at least one of those units is going to be, vacant at some point within a year, right? And 4 units, including the basement. And then for the most part, right, again, this property is going to pay for itself. We're also going to ask that our tenants pay their own utilities. So our expenses outside of the mortgage, mainly include maintenance and the water bill. So doing all of that and calculating, right, you have this, right? A lot of things going on here, but what you mainly want to focus on are these two, right? Your capitalization rate and your cash on cash return. And the good thing about this little website right here is that it explains everything for you. So your capitalization rate is the net operating income. So all of the money that you would make from rent within a year, so total annual income, right? And then you subtract that from expenses, right? You get your net operating income. So capitalization rate is your net operating income divided by the purchase price. So our purchase price was 1.55 million, and you have this cap rate of about 6.92. Right? And generally speaking, for a quote unquote good deal, you want about an 8 to 12% cap rate. But again, my brother and I see a lot of potential in this house. So we're willing to bet that, over time, we're going to get to that 8%. And similarly, the same thing with this cash on cash return, right? This is, your return on investment essentially, right? Generally speaking, you want to have at least 10%, right? So 10% is, the historical average of the S&P 500. On average, you will get about 10% of your money investing in the S&P 500. So at the very least, you would want to make that back investing in real estate. So right now we're at about 9%. But again, we believe that just through the potential of the property that we can eventually get there. So again, like I said, ideally speaking, you want to already have those numbers. You want to already be at that 8% here, that 12% there. But if you do see potential in the property based on some of the factors that I mentioned earlier, it might be a good deal. So if you've been following everything I've been saying in this video up until this point, I think it's safe to say that you now have a pretty ballpark understanding of what to expect when you're getting into this process. What I would recommend when you're actually in the process, though, is to supplement this video with the advice of a real estate agent and a loan officer who has knowledge of whichever specific market that you're looking to buy in. If you're looking to buy in New York, obviously, different neighborhoods have different types of markets. These are definitely things that you want to be aware of prior to making that purchase. And yeah, as you can see here, this is not an easy process, but it is possible.
All right, everybody, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you found this video helpful. If you think there's anything that I may have missed, please comment down below in the comments, or if you think I really did a really good job, still in the comments. I want to see that feedback. And yeah, I hope that for those people who, the big money getters and the real ambitious people, that this video was helpful for you all. And yeah, let's buy up these properties, man. They're not making any more new properties, and yeah, let's get it. Bow.
Saint Bernard.